Lucha Libre. What is it? Where does it come from? We head south of the border this time on Falls Count Anywhere.
Welcome back to another exciting episode of Falls Count Anywhere. And, you know, a couple weeks ago we did our history of women's wrestling, and I had such a good time doing research on that I wanted to do it again.
That was cool.
This time we're doing it with Lucha Libre. So, for those who don't know, Lucha Libre is a special kind of wrestling that comes from south of the border, Mexico, South America. Kind of holds a special place in our hearts. I mean, we grew up with the cruiserweights of WCW and a lot of luchadors. Mexican wrestlers got their start with that back in the day. I mean, what's your earliest memory of Lucha Libre before we get into the nitty-gritty?
I mean, I fell in love with wrestling as an 8-year-old, 7, 8, 9-year-old watching Rey Mysterio take on the Ultimo Dragon, Psychosis, Jushin Thunder Liger.
Yep.
Obviously, slightly older. It kind of bled into X Division guys in
TNA.
TNA Impact Wrestling. And, you know, it's cool to watch the stories, but then to really get into the athleticism that was associated with it and seeing it more as like a performance or like, it's kind of cliche, but calling it like a dance. I mean, that's really what kind of enthralled you to the sport. And I think Lucha Libre is really what kind of created the niche that allowed little guys to kind of chase that dream.
Right.
And as a guy that wasn't very big, that obviously always appealed to me growing up. So
Absolutely. Yeah, watching, I mean, you said it, Rey Mysterio, Ultimo Dragon, Psychosis. I mean, those guys, Eddie Guerrero, I mean, those guys were so much fun to watch. That was the only reason I watched WCW, was to see those guys go. So let's get into it. Lucha Libre roughly translates to freestyle wrestling or free fight. It's characterized by wrestlers who wear colorful masks, have rapid sequences of holds and maneuvers, a lot of high flying. You know, sometimes it's a little hard to follow because there's so much happening in such a short amount of time.
A lot of the moves we talked about last week.
That's right. Yep. Go back and watch our episode last week on wrestling moves. Another staple of lucha wrestling or Mexican wrestling they do a lot of tag matches, especially 6-man tags, which they call trios. I mean, we see that in AEW now. They really adopted that into their repertoire.
Yep.
But this isn't a recent thing. How far? I asked you this about women's wrestling. I'm going to ask you about Lucha Libre. How far back do you think Lucha Libre began?
Well, I think I said the 70s or 80s for the women, and you went 19. So I'm going to guess that it's at least as old as the women. So I'm going to say turn of the century, early 1900s.
A little before that even.
Oh, my God.
Lucha Libre dates back to the year 1863.
Before the Civil War. During
the Civil War. This was when actually France was occupying, or I don't remember the term. They were having dealings with Mexico at the time. But the very first luchador, Enrique Ugarteteca.
That's a mouthful.
I'm going to get a lot of names wrong in this episode. Sorry. But he invented Lucha Libre, and it was inspired by a form of Greco-Roman wrestling.
But it was performance.
Yes.
It wasn't purely athletic.
It was
combat. It was performance.
Yeah, it was a mix of both. I think back then, I mean, all wrestling was more athletic, more real, more of that ilk. So then around the turn of the century, like you said, all Mexican wrestling had been very regional. They stayed in their own small areas. Around the turn of the century, Salvador Luteroth founded the Empresa Mexicana de Lucha Libre, EMLL, which now is known as CMLL, which is the oldest wrestling company in the world right now. First established in 1933. And this allowed the wrestlers, or as they are known, luchadors, to compete nationally for the first time. This is when the NWA was kind of part of that company down there.
Okay.
And again, if you've seen our videos before, NWA, National Wrestling Alliance, they were the original wrestling company that basically controlled the territories
in the United States
and Mexico
and beyond.
And about that same time was when you first started seeing wrestlers wearing the masks. It dates back to about 1933. A luchador by the name of El Ciclón McKay commissioned a wrestling shoemaker to make a mask for him. His name was Don Antonio Martinez, and his store where he made that first mask is still around today.
Really?
Near the arena in Mexico City. Nearly 100 years old.
That is a pilgrimage right there.
Right?
That'd be cool to go to.
Yeah, that would be fun to see. But Lucha Libre didn't really start getting popular until about the 50s and 60s with the advent of television.
Okay.
But also mainly one of the most popular luchadors of all time by the name of El Santo. And pretty much everyone would know what El Santo looks like if they see him, even if they don't know who he is. He was legendary in Mexican culture. He was in comic books. He was in movies. I mean, he did movies with like Frankenstein and Dracula and all this other stuff.
He's the Hulk Hogan of Mexico.
Basically,
Okay.
yeah. He was known for his bright silver sparkly mask. Mm-hmm. He debuted in 1942 and never revealed his true identity until shortly before his death in 1984.
For 40 plus years.
Yep, 5 decades he wrestled in and never once took his mask off until near the time he died. He was actually buried wearing his mask because that's how he was known throughout the world.
Wow.
I mean, that's...
kayfabe.
Yeah, that is sticking. And that's when the masks really... they were the wrestler's identity. I mean, you see it... they say it now in WWE to this day, you know, a wrestler's mask is his livelihood, and if he loses his mask, blah, 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 blah. It doesn't mean nearly as much today as it did back in this time.
Yeah, it's become a symbol of honor and privilege. There's a sense of identity. It's kind of, I think, the equivalent of cheap heat that they do here in the States that I don't even think they do in the Mexican promotions, which is try and rip somebody's mask off.
Oh, we'll get to that. There's a reason for that.
Yeah, okay, all right, good. I was going to ask about that.
Yep. So again, in this time, 50s and 60s, other famous luchadors that wrestling fans know very well became prominent. Gory Guerrero,
yep,
the patriarch of the famous Guerrero family.
Yep.
He was credited with inventing wrestling moves that still get used today, like the camel clutch. Mm-hmm. And the gory special. Mm-hmm. Those are still common today, and there are different variations that have been created.
Wait a minute, what's the gory special?
That's where like someone gets on their back to back, and they stretch the arms around. They have the legs hooked out around their thighs.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
And you can turn that into a bomb. You can turn that into a pile driver, face buster.
Yep.
Blue Demon, who was the arch nemesis of El Santo, very recognizable with his blue mask and cape. Mm-hmm. Mil Mascaras, man of 1,000 masks. He was one of the first high flyers to come about in Lucha Libre, and really that's what Lucha Libre has grown into now mostly, is high flying, like we said, fast paced.
The model at the time, did the business model or the structure look the same in Mexico as it did in the United States? Did they both evolve together?
I think it was similar. Again, the NWA had a foothold in Mexico, and they were promoting and pushing the product.
Well, I guess I kind of asked the question because NWA was pushing and managing the product, but a lot of these names weren't household names in the 60s and 70s in the United States.
Not in the United States, no.
So it was still. It wasn't
very,
like Japan where they were kind of trading talent. For
right. They weren't doing that just yet.
Yeah. Okay.
It wasn't until the later territory days, 70s, 80s, when people started traveling, and again, when TV is just starting to take over.
Yeah.
That's when they started becoming popular in Mexico.
Yeah, I think in the 80s you would do that, right? Guys
Right.
would get bits off
Be
and they would go down.
pilgrimages.
Yeah, right. They'd go down to Puerto Rico or Mexico or wherever
Yeah.
to work. Okay.
One other name I wanted to mention, because we spoke about this last week on our Moves episode, a wrestler by the name of Huracan Ramirez.
Oh, wow. I wonder
Can you guess what move he invented?
the Frankensteiner.
Close.
The Huracan Rana, which
The
must have
Hurricane
been,
Rana, yep.
it must have been like, you know that scene from Semi-Pro when he does the alley-oop for the first time? It must have been like, no, that's illegal. You can't do that. It must have been like this watershed moment.
Yep. Basically,
wrestling.
the Rana existed, but he put a certain twist on it that he was able to brand
Literally.
it his own. Yep, literally.
Literally.
So then, so you mentioned how they weren't really names in America. It wasn't until the early to mid 90s that Mexican wrestlers started getting a foothold in America. In 1994, AAA, which is one of the big Mexican promotions still to this day, teamed up with WCW to do When Worlds Collide.
Yep.
And that was the first time Mexican wrestlers and some Japanese wrestlers were in America promoting.
It really served as the model for Forbidden Door,
Yeah.
which is what we're doing right
Exactly.
now, right? It's basically an exchange, not really an exchange, but an opportunity for talent to get exposed to each other
Yep.
and hopefully get a foothold in each other's markets.
And that show specifically led to WCW and ECW bringing in
Yep.
Mexican, Japanese wrestlers. We mentioned Rey Mysterio, that's his mask right there. Psychosis, Eddie Guerrero, La Parca, he was one of my favorites. Juventud Guerrera.
Dude. Hoovy Juice.
Yep. They all started coming over and they were showing up on Nitro and everything else.
Hoovy Juice. Oh, I haven't said that in 20 years.
So, in a nutshell, that's the history of Lucha Libre. The characteristics of it, though, why it's mentioned separately from professional wrestling, from American wrestling, we mentioned the trios matches. They're very famous for those. Rules for matches are mostly the same as American with two exceptions. You mentioned the masks. In Mexican wrestling, when someone rips off his opponent's mask, it's an immediate DQ.
Oof,
Immediately.
That's a huge.
That's like a nut shot, basically.
That's a big no-no. Yep.
And the other major difference, again in the tag matches, we just saw this recently on AEW, and I've never been a huge fan of it, but when a wrestler leaves the ring and his feet hit the floor, one of his teammates can automatically jump in the ring and be the legal man without a tag. It's supposed to make
What's that
for...
called?
It's
There's
just
a-
Lucha rules.
Lucha
or
rules? I
Lucha
thought there
tag,
was a specific... Lucha tag. Yes,
Yep.
that's what I'm thinking of.
So it's just make it more fast-paced, more,
Keep the action
right, keep it going. So in Lucha Libre, obviously they have baby faces and heels, but you know what they're called?
El Niños and I can't remember the word for foot off the top of my head.
Nope. You're not even close.
Oh, okay.
You got the Rudos,
Okay.
who are
Who
translated tough guys,
the
bad
heels.
guys.
Yeah. the
And
Rudos.
then you got the Technicos.
Oh, okay.
And these are the good guys, literally the technicians. So the heels, the Rudos, they tend to be more brawlers. They bend and break the rules. They're just,
Strong style.
yeah. The Technicos, obviously,
So wait a minute. The Rudos tend to be larger.
not necessarily, but they tend to be much more heavy-handed. And they're not as flamboyant. They're not as flashy. They keep their feet on the ground for the most part.
They tend to be. Well, let me ask. I don't want to get ahead of us here, so let me know if I am. But what about like mic work and that kind of stuff? Like, is that typical, or is it much more AEW style where there's a lot less story?
There's a lot
more...
less. There's not as much promos from what I can tell. I'm not positive because we haven't watched it in a while, but from what I understand, it's mostly based on what's happening in the ring.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
And if anyone is cutting a promo, I think it's generally the Technicos. They're getting the crowd hyped. They're
Okay.
playing to the audience.
Okay. All right.
Another gimmick that is seen very often, there's a couple of them, but have you ever heard of exoticos?
Exoticos, yes.
Yep, tend to be wrestlers in drag.
Yep.
Basically. This became popular in the 50s and has existed ever since.
It was like a comedy thing, wasn't it? Wasn't it originally intended to be like a...
Yeah, even as recently as the early 2010s, rather. Like in Lucha Underground, they would have exoticos come in and they would be kissing their opponents and,
You kind of see that as
goofy.
almost like a Bugs Bunny kind of thing.
Exactly.
Right, where he wears the dress and
dressed
tricks
up like
Elmer
a...
Fudd.
Yep.
Yeah, that's kind of, and I think that you see some of the independent promotions kind of playing with that. There's some kind of Impact
And I'm
Wrestling
sure
is doing a little thing.
I'm
like
sure
that.
some of them were legitimately, that was their lifestyle, was to be that way, because they certainly lived the gimmick, especially in the old days,
But kayfabe very important.
Yep.
Obviously, with being buried in your mask and all that stuff.
Being buried in your mask, right. And another one is the mini Estrellas, the mini stars, the midgets.
Midget. That's huge. Huge.
Again, I go to Lucha Underground, which I didn't mention. Lucha Underground was a American TV program from a few years ago that was solely based around lucha wrestling, and oh man, it was such a good show.
Very good.
Such a good show. But I bring that up because one of the minis on that show was Mascarita Sagrada, and he would very often face all of the regular-sized wrestlers and was always entertaining.
And it was basically a comedy act, right?
Yep.
Where you could
But he was a legitimately good wrestler.
running around their leg. Now, he had a mask and a cape, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
He was a full white bodysuit.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. And then the other big thing in Lucha Libre is luchas de apuestas, matches with wagers.
Ah, yes.
So these...
And that did bleed into the United States. A lot of mask versus championship kind of stuff.
Mask versus mask, hair versus hair, title versus career. That happens a lot. Generally, this happens so much down in Mexico that the titles, the championships, there a lot less importance is put on those because a mask means so much more than a belt. So oftentimes you'll see, Mexican titles not be defended for more than once or twice a year.
And instead they would do a mask match?
A mask match, a hair match, career match. Those were always those were the biggest storylines in Lucha Libre wrestling.
That really points to the cultural nature of it. Like, wrestling isn't nearly as ingrained in the culture in the United States. And so I think that too many of the mainstream promotions, rely, right, the running joke on our show is titles for everybody.
Yep.
But that's kind of that's the symptom of not having that cultural backing behind it, where at least that we had in the 1980s, where, oh my God, Hulk Hogan lost, or oh my God, this happened, or that this person got injured, or whatever. You don't really see that. It kind of really has a hard time adding consequence. You really have a hard time adding consequence. Because the idea that a champion would go into a match holding the championship without the championship being on the line.
Right. His mask is on the line or something.
It's very weird. I mean, even with Carmelo Hayes recently doing that with his NXT championship, he went off-brand to do it. But very odd to do something like that in the United States. But very not odd in Lucha.
So those are the basic characteristics. When you think back, what are one of the, or a couple of the Lucha matches that stand out in your mind? I mean, the first one I think of is Rey Mysterio versus Eddie Guerrero at Halloween Havoc, where Rey is wearing the full bodysuit to prevent Eddie from tearing his mask off.
Oh yeah, Eddie went after his mask. Brutal, tearing the eye holes out. I mean, he basically demasked him on multiple occasions during that feud.
Yeah.
I mean, that was crazy. I think about, just from the technical aspect, like, was it? It was just like a Nitro match. It was just like, or maybe it was a Saturday night match with Ultimo Dragon and Rey Mysterio. I'm sure you can find it on YouTube, but just the technicality of it. You can't tell who's calling the match. It's very technically sound and exciting. I think about LWO and the work that they did in WCW, forming probably, right, that was kind of the original Lucha or Latino faction.
Yeah, they didn't take it as seriously in WCW as they could have.
Yeah,
but
100%.
Definitely it was.
But I mean, it was
the whole idea was getting all the Latino wrestlers together to get some respect from the company.
Yeah,
and from people in general.
Modeled off the New World Order, obviously, and the success that they had,
and making a comeback this year.
And I think about. I really wasn't able to appreciate it at the time, but when I go back now and I watch clips from Psychosis,
oh my God,
I thought that was a crazy, stupid gimmick.
That name.
And then when you think about,
fitting.
Then when you think about them all doing it with the mask on, and some of these masks, I mean, maybe we need to show some pictures here.
That's a good transition. I was going to talk about
some
the
of
masks
these
next.
Masks are unbelievably intricate.
I mean, all the early masks
complex.
started like this. They were just a basic shape with, some designs on it or something. But nowadays,
there's hair, and I mean, it's like a trick-or-treat Halloween mask. I mean, and they're
Psychosis had the horns,
the big horns that would fall, and he's like, you can't see because the eye holes aren't very big, so you don't have good peripheral. I mean, ring awareness, and they never seem to really get hurt. They always seem to work safely.
There's a couple wrestlers today. Is it? I think it's just El Toro, the bull.
El
he has
Toro.
A full-on
and it's
bull mask.
It's a whole thing. Yeah, he's got like the ring and the nose and everything. That's
Drago.
insane.
He's got a dragon head and a crazy long black tongue.
Toro's
oh
nuts.
my God.
Yep, Toro's crazy.
But yeah, those masks
Definitely
have gotten
a
pretty
Rudo.
intricate.
Definitely a Rudo.
Psycho Clown, he's another one that's wrestling today. That's got a crazy. He is a fucked up, freaky clown. Holy shit! He puts Doink to shame.
Good gimmick. Good gimmick.
Today you still see the influence. I mean, in all the companies. Obviously, Mexico has CMLL and AAA. Those are the big ones, but I mean, they're all over the place in every country. AEW's got Pentagon and Phoenix,
they're so good.
First time I saw them, again, Lucha Underground.
And they do like a mask face paint kind of a thing too.
Combo thing.
And it's funny you bring up the trios because there's a lot of, love it or hate it, you see a lot of choreographed, coordinated movements. Is way more, especially if you watch WWE or certain flavors or certain styles, wrestle styles in AEW, WCW back in the past. It was a lot of it was kind of like a singles match with 4 guys instead of 2. Whereas this was a lot more, the Lucha styles, way more coordinated. Guys are doing the same moves to their opponents at the same time. There's reversals in the same way. There's big high spots where people are doing suicidas or tope suicidas, to the outside, over tables, chairs, and things like that. It's a lot more... It's a lot more choreographed. Some people love it, some people
And it is a lot more entertainment, too. I mean, there's one match in particular from WCW, and I thought it was so stupid as a kid, but it was a trios match, I'm pretty sure. 5 of the wrestlers are sitting on the mat, and they're stretching each other's legs, and they're in a star formation. It's called the Star. And then the 6th wrestler just jumps in the middle and just starts dancing around. It's so cheesy, but... it is so good.
It goes, it goes. You never see that in WWE today.
Never.
But AEW, you might see it. Something like that. Yeah, there's and that's what's kind of weird. You kind of walk this line of kayfabe where you've got people doing that as if you would actually do that, or you've got the exotic hosts that are like Bugs Bunny in a dress wandering around doing these antic things. You've got the midgets and their whole gimmick thing. And then at the same time, you've got guys that are getting buried in their mask. You got guys that the biggest mistake, one of the biggest mistakes that WWE ever made in the history, it will go down as one of the top 10 mistakes, was unmasking Rey Mysterio.
WCW, you mean?
Sorry, WCW. Yep. Unmasking, well, and of course he didn't have the mask in WWE either. They didn't put the mask back onto him until a while later. But I mean, that'll go down as one of the biggest, certainly character-related mistakes that they ever made in the company.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of luchadors got unmasked in WCW, which was
it's
disappointing.
Weird. You have this, definitely the sign of a dying company. You kind of have this weird dynamic where you've got all this antic, cartoonish type stuff going on, just the existence of the mask, the colorful displays and things like that. And then at the same time, you got guys that are getting buried in their masks in order so that you won't ever find out who their actual identity is.
And they would go out in public on a daily basis wearing those masks.
Good
going
luck.
to the store, going to...
Good luck finding a picture of Rey Mysterio.
Yeah, he's been pretty good about that.
You won't find him walking the street with his kids without his mask. I could never imagine having a kid being like, "Sorry, Jimmy, I got to put my mask on before we go to the grocery store or go to the park." Like, yeah, that's nuts. That's crazy.
So, thought this would be interesting to kind of do a little bit of a deep dive. I mean, there's volumes more we could do, but we've got limited time. So this is our little love letter to Lucha Libre and what it's meant to us as wrestling fans.
It's still some of my favorite work that I see today is Lucha style. And, we talked on the Straight Edge show a few weeks ago about how cultures mingle together and you create this amazing melting pot. And when I think about the things that Lucha has done, the things that culture has contributed to, let's say, the American melting pot of professional wrestling, you see guys that shouldn't be doing moonsaults, doing Huracan Ranas. The only sunset flip we could find for our moves was Big Show doing a sunset flip. I mean, I just think it's just a real testament to how unbelievably interesting, diverse, and cool professional wrestling is, that it is a blank enough canvas that you can allow a little splash of lucha onto it, and it completely changes the dynamic and creates something entirely new and totally different and culturally impactful, and it creates a space for people to get interested in the product that maybe weren't interested in the product before. I mean, it's really what makes wrestling so interesting and exciting for me.
Absolutely.
I really love it.
So tell us what you think. Do you have a favorite Lucha match? Were you a fan of WCW, Lucha Underground, or do you watch AAA now or CMLL?
We will link the Rey Mysterio Ultimate Dragon match below in the description. Please check it out. Very cool, very interesting. It will not be a wasted 10 minutes at all. So
definitely. So follow us on our social medias, like, share, comment, subscribe. You know the deal. Be here next week when we post the new videos coming up. And if you keep watching, we'll keep wrestling with business. Now I'm going to open with Lucha, Lucha.
It'll be an outtake at the end.